Well, hi kids! I'm showing the new crowd simulation in iClone. I love procedural animation, so this is weirdly exciting for me. Crowd sim is a big feature with a lot of moving parts. I'm covering the basic concepts so that you can understand what it does and how to set it up. Now you can use existing figures and old school walk animations, but it builds on Reallusion's Actor Core and the new Motion Director system in iClone. Well, it's newish, it's been around for like a year. In fact, CrowdSim feels like all of Reallusion's products are working together. It's the final boss of iClone 8. Now, I have set up procedural crowds in Unity, and I've made scenes and interactive props for virtual worlds. So once I understood the parallels, it was pretty easy for me to understand Reallusion's system. But this is much better than anything I attempted to build myself. Now, all the animations are procedural, it's automatic. Just set up the environment and let it run like an RPG or a Sims game. There are even interactive prop stations that will snag a nearby actor to interact with before releasing them back to the simulation. Now, if you're an animator or you create video presentations trying to figure this out for the first time, you can very easily populate a 3D environment in minutes. It's not perfect. You'll see foot sliding and figures will occasionally pass through each other. That's why you can go back and edit individual figures later. It's way more impressive from a distance. And less is more because too many figures start to look like machinima because you see the animation loops repeat more often. It ruins the magic if it just looks like Second Life. Now, like I said, this is just an introduction, although it won't be that short. So I'm going to explain the basics and build some small examples for you. By the end of this video, you'll be able to set these up yourself. And you'll have a better idea what Reallusion is selling in those expensive add-on packs. I want them. Yeah. But I'm just using the free tools today inside iClone. I'm not sponsored by Reallusion, and this is always my honest opinions. I'm gonna start a new scene, and I'm importing my environment geometry. This is just a model that I exported from Unity using their free FBX exporter. It imports into iClone with textures, so I had nothing else to set up. Let's go to Create, Generate NavMesh. And that was easy. Maybe too easy, because when I check the NavMesh in diagnostic mode, which hides my imported geometry, there's a flaw. If you can see this white line, that's a hint that there's a tear or an incomplete weld in this NavMesh. If I adjust the settings, I can make this gap worse. You can see that it also repeats on the other levels. And the problem is that your actors won't be able to cross this break. Now the mesh is connected, it's one mesh, but it's only connected by this tiny vertex at the edge. And that's not enough for the figures to jump across. It's just a limitation of automatic geometry that creates this. It's a low poly approximation of my walkable surfaces, and I have quite a few that are stacked on top of each other, so it doesn't mind that I have overlapping levels, but it just can't get all the stair vertices when I expand the volume this big. And I don't think anything can really be done, that's just how it is, but we have options. So one option is that since it maps the flat parts of the floor really well, I could keep everyone compartmentalized on their floor. They won't travel from floor to floor, but I will show you at the end of this video how to build up a waypoint on the stairs, which would hide that. And another option is to limit the NavMesh with a volume. And this does seem to work better. It's able to map the walkable surfaces without making the welding mistakes. So I think it's a good idea to just keep the areas limited. I could make a few volumes, and I could still do a walkway between the traffic floors, or I could just stretch this volume over a couple of floors and do it in small batches like that. We don't have to make an open world. We'll just fake it with smaller areas. Okay, let's add the people. Under the Create menu, find Scatter and Crowd Generation. We have a new panel. There's going to be a lot of panels in this tutorial. We have a new panel to set up our crowd with actors and animations. Now you should find some actor core people in your content, drag them to the actor pool list. You can use your own figures, but obviously this works better with optimized figures like Actor Core, or make your own Actor Core figures in Character Creator. They just need to be low resolution images and packed. It helps if they're all packed in, like a game figure. Now for the animations, I'm using the new IMD files. You should have several of these in your poses content under the Motion Director folder. And there are several IMD action presets for Crowd Sim. Everything is tagged once you drag it in. Everything is tagged so the figures will get matching animations. Now I'll tell you more about these IMD files in a minute. We can't proceed until we select a NavMesh or a walkway or a scatter volume to generate into. And these can overlap, but they do tend to get smaller. In other words, a walkway inside a NavMesh, inside a volume, it's going to be the smallest. So back in the scene view, so I can pick. On the scatter panel, I choose pick object and then the NavMesh. And right away, I see markers showing where the actors will be loaded. And I'll set this number lower, just 6 figures and 6 instances. So each figure is used once. And I can randomize their orientation so they start looking in different directions for what that's worth. When I like the distribution, I can hit Deploy Actors. Now in the scene director, we can see that the figures are loading and they're being changed to actors and being registered with the simulation. Now we can't proceed to the Motion Director controller until I close the scatter panel. So iClone will walk you through some of this, but it is confusing. All 6 figures are selected in the scene, and they are selected in the Motion Director controller. Now don't worry about Motion Director because the Crowd Sim will take over and handle everything. I do want to make one change. One of the actors is a child, so I'm going to set him to follow another actor. I can select the figure, either in the list or in the scene, and I'm going to edit which controller is active for his figure, and selecting follow. Now, he has a red alert text until I pick another person for him to follow. So I'll pick this woman, and wherever this woman goes, the child will follow her. Before I play the simulation, I select all the actors. And there's just one more setting I want to change on all of them. I'll set them to idle less often and walk more. Now there are more settings here, but we're just going to skip over these so that we can see the simulation. And by the way, I can turn on individual recorders, but I want them all to record in a single macro. So every figure is selected, and I hit the record button. iClone thinks about it a little harder the first time, and it's animating. But I do think our child is following a little too closely. So I'm going to stop and make some adjustments. I'm gonna select the child again, and I'll add a little distance and time delay so he isn't just mowing her down. I'll make some more adjustments and record. Now, while we're watching, I will fill you in on Motion Director. Now, Motion Director is iClone's motion matching solution. It's a procedural system that transitions from one animation state to another. And procedural animation systems are normal in game engines. Unity has a system called Mechanim, where you can set up a complex flow of animation states. Unreal has nothing. Good luck with that. Now, IMD Actions, which are a new format for sale in Reallusion content stores, these are motion director presets that contain walk cycles and idle loops, plus the blendings for all the state transitions. There are add-on packs that require other IMDs. So when you look through the store and you wonder what these are, hopefully all you need to know is that Motion Director is a real-time character controller, and our crowd simulation is puppeting all of the figures through procedural triggers to control the figures. And the simulator is not writing keyframes for all these figures. That would be way too slow. Instead, the simulator logs its procedural calls for each figure on an instruction stack. They call it a macro. You can play back the macro in real time, and we can edit individual figures and their timings, or re-record one figure while keeping the rest of the simulation the same. The macros can be recorded to the timeline or converted to an animation clip directly, and from there you can export to FBX or USD and import back to your main renderer or game engine. Now I'll show a walkway. Remember when I said that we could fix the problem with the NavMesh by adding a walkway to the stairs? Well, in a lot of ways, walkways are a lot easier and more reliable than NavMesh. So I'm gonna delete the actors that we already have and the old NavMesh. We're gonna start over with the bare model. Under the Create menu, I'll start a path. And the path is just going to follow the flow of the building. Then actually this building makes more sense with a path. It just follows the geometry because it's basically all stairs. Very convenient. Now I'm just clicking directly on the geometry and each path point is being created. On the last path point, I hit the escape key to escape the path. And now we're set. With the path selected, under Modify, there's an MD tab. And the first slider adds width, converting it into a walkway. This is another kind of NavMesh. It works exactly the same, but it's continuous. So, open the scatter and the crowd generation panel. We're gonna do this again. Our figures and animations are still loaded. I just need to pick the object and choose our path. And the markers are already finding positions. I'm going to increase the actor count this time, and instead of orientation, walkways have a direction. Because basically you're walking from one end to the other and back again. Now the figures are all selected in the scene and in Motion Director. Notice everyone's controller is set to auto on path. And I'm not going to bother with the follow this time. That kid's on his own. So I'll just start the macro recording. And this time there's a much longer wait while the simulation prepares the first time. Even with a walkway, the people can pause and go into idle animations, and they can change directions. It's just like a NavMesh, I think it's a little more reliable. Now I'll take a minute to tidy up the Bezier points on my path. Some of them are a little mangled. This part of the interface is a little awkward. You have to click on the point and then click on the Bezier handle and then drag the handle. It's a lot of click, 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 click. The people do wander off the walkway sometimes, so you want to keep them narrower and away from the ledges. And the final step in this tutorial is to add some of the motion director props. The included props are an observable object, a chair with a sit animation, and there are others, but those are good for now. Now the props also have an empty tab where we can set up the automatic parameters. I want the occupant to be random, because that will be anyone who walks into the trigger area. And we can set the odds for each tag so that maybe certain people don't use certain props. And at the bottom, after some time of interacting with the prop will release the figure, either after playing its animation one time or after a random interval. And now let's have our last look. The props are grabbing people off the walkway, and they're sitting on chairs. They're looking at the observable objects. The people are successfully navigating up and down the stairs. They can't get lost because they're on that walkway path. I think that's all I have time for today. So give me a like if you think this video will help other people. And of course you can subscribe if you want to be informed of the next one. Not all of my videos are about iClone or Reallusion. I do have other videos, mostly tutorials and some fun stuff. So I hope you join me. As usual, I hope you had a learn. And I'll see you next time. Bye!